Alright, YouTube, we are back, of course, talking some Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. I wanted to get my thoughts on the game after having finished it, but also getting the platinum. It is a game I've been playing kind of off and on for the better part of 20 plus years now. I played it either like 2002 to like 2004, somewhere in that couple year time frame is when I would have first played Final Fantasy Tactics, the original version. And obviously, some years later, I played it on PSP, the War of the Lions version. I'm actually not sure when it comes to Tactics if I played the original Tactics first or Tactics Advance for Game Boy Advance, obviously. I don't know what happened first. I don't know what the sequence of events were, but I definitely played them kind of around the same time. It's also been a very long time since I played the original at all. Like, I've played War of the Lions within the last like year or two. I bought it on my phone, played a little bit of it, didn't get very far. I also bought War of the Lions for PSP like a handful of years ago for my PSP. I don't even know if I started a playthrough on it because I was still playing through Crisis Core at the time. So in terms of like playing Final Fantasy Tactics, it might be as far back as like 2002 to 2004 since I actually played the original. Tactical RPG genre is not one that I'm super into. Not that there's anything wrong with those games or the genre or whatever. I just don't know that I've played anything outside of Final Fantasy Tactics. I do love what I've played of the franchise. I used to play Final Fantasy Tactics Advance so damn much back in the day. The first Tactics, I don't recall how much I've played. I definitely played the original on PS1 a few times, but having gone through and played the game fully to this point, I don't think I ever beat it. Because once I got to a certain point in the story, kind of like a little past the mid-game, maybe like Chapter 3 stuff, there's a lot of it I didn't recognize, so I don't think I've ever actually beat the game. I do remember on one of my playthroughs back in the day getting stuck on a particular fight. I don't know if it was one of like the soft locks where you like save in the middle of doing like the multi-fight stuff in the story. And if you save there and you can't beat that fight, you're just stuck and you got to do a new playthrough or something like that. That might have been what happened to me. I don't recall, but I do remember getting stuck, at least on one of my playthroughs. Also, now that I've gone through the full story of the game, I can see where some of the fights would have been difficult for a younger David that didn't really know what the hell he was doing. So it's actually really nice to come back and play this game now that I realize I probably never actually finished the story on it. So it's kind of nice to finally check that off. Because as for the game itself, it is a tactical RPG. You fight on a grid-based battlefield. Characters have turns. You can move only so many spaces per character based on what job or class they are. Also, what kind of gear they have can affect how far they can move. Depending on what sort of attack or ability you're doing with a particular character, it has its own kind of ranges.
This is the end!
The job system is definitely the highlight of the game, where you can make pretty much any character, any class, outside of the unique characters that have a default unique class itself. You can make any character anything, right? You can spec a black mage into a knight if you wanted to, right? And mix and match those abilities. So for example, when it comes to a black mage, they can only equip rods as a weapon, right? But if you actually took that particular character through the knight class, you could teach them the equip swords support ability, which then would allow them to equip a sword. And in a kind of similar example, when it comes to white mages, or really any other magic user for the most part, they can only equip clothing type of armor, robes and things like that. But if you, again, take them through like the knight class, you could teach them the equip heavy armor support ability, which then, of course, would allow them to equip heavy armor. Now, to be honest, there's not really a reason why you would build your characters in that way. It wouldn't really benefit you to give your black mage a sword or give your white mage heavy armor necessarily, unless they just had to like survive a really heavy hit, because those types of armors generally give you more HP or something. But it's just the freedom to do that. That's what's great about games like this, where you can just mix and match all the different classes. And in the same realm of having the freedom to, equip like heavy armor on your white mage, you can give like knight abilities or, monk abilities to your summoner for some reason if you wanted to do that. There's not really a reason why you would do your class that way, but you have that freedom. Actually, the monk class is kind of a bad example because that's actually a really good like subclass to put on a lot of characters just because of the utility of all the monk skills with like range fighting and healing and reviving characters and stuff. It's actually a really good secondary class you could put on pretty much any class and it'd probably benefit you. Again, it's that freedom of creativity that is fun about this game. You can do whatever the hell you want, right? You can give your summoner the ninja throw skill as their like secondary subclass, right? That wouldn't benefit you too much. Again, not a reason you should do that. You could benefit greatly from a lot of other classes. Actually, the reverse of that would be pretty good if you had a ninja that had a summoner subclass, because the ninjas have a lot of like movement. They're fast characters. They can move a lot of spaces. They also have dual naturally, so you can hit really hard with like regular attacks, but also they could have summons for like some more range fighting. You already have the throw skill naturally, which is range fighting, but you could hit like a group of enemies at one time with a summon. Or you could just, simply do like a black mage that has the white mage as their subclass. So you already have like a high MP character, high magic attack character, and they can do damage or heal the team, revive the team, whatever, right? Just that freedom. That I don't know if any other tactical RPGs offer that kind of class freedom, but this game definitely does. And when it comes to building your character, it's very much class based, at least for the equipment, outside of the support abilities that we kind of already covered. If you're, a knight, you can equip a sword and a shield, a helmet, heavy armor, and then the accessory, I think, can be equipped on everybody. Like, there's no limits on what your class is versus what accessory you can equip. And when it comes to the abilities on your character, obviously your default abilities or whatever class you are. You can have a sub-class, which we've already kind of talked about. You have a reaction ability, which your character does something based on whatever happens to them. Generally, it's going to be when they get damaged, they do something like a counterattack or auto potion, something along those lines. The support ability we've kind of already gone over, but there's many more than just being able to equip, swords on a mage or whatever. There's all kinds of like double hand, dual wield, all kinds of different stuff that allow you to do all kinds of different things. And they can also be as kind of simple, if you want to use that term, as like attack boost or magic defense boost. But then there's also a kind of like traversal or movement passive ability you can equip on your character, which can be as simple as just moving an extra space or 2 or 3. You can also teleport, you can ignore elevation that allows you to jump to the highest points on the map. You can also walk on water or lava. As you can see, there are quite literally like countless ways to build your characters, whatever kind of combinations you want to do, Frankenstein's monster type shit, whatever you feel like. And I think it's what's so compelling about the game for me and a lot of other players as well. But there is also the story. Now, I'm not going to give you a story synopsis. It's not really what I want to do with this video, but also I wouldn't want to spoil it for you if you never played the game. Now that I've actually played the game for what feels like the first time, it's definitely one of the better stories in all of Final Fantasy. There is a slight limitation to the story just because of the style of game that it is. You don't just have the exposition of other Final Fantasy games where you go from town to town, location to location, all kinds of NPCs and dialogue and things you can get from characters, right? You don't really have that freedom in this game. It's just from story segment to story segment, that's where you get the lore and the story, right? They did remedy this a bit with the Chronicle section in the enhanced version of the game where you can kind of just read about everything in the game, right? Everything the game has to offer, which is nice. It still is relegated to menus, so it's kind of similar to Final Fantasy VIII or maybe something like Final Fantasy XIII. You're not getting it necessarily in the game itself, but in menus, but it's still there. It does help. But that minor limitation that I mentioned doesn't hurt the story in any way. It's still a very, very compelling story. There's fantastic story arcs for characters like Ramza and Delita. I don't want to go too much more into it, of course, because I want you guys to experience it for yourself, if you haven't yet. Speaking of the enhanced version of the game, my god, did they add a lot to it. I think voice acting is maybe overall the thing that I like the most, just because that adds so much to the storytelling, actually getting to hear the characters and hear like the emotion in characters. But there's so very many quality of life changes, from simply being able to skip random battles, which was a problem in the original game, right? As you traverse around the map, the world map or whatever, if you come across an area where there's random battles, you might have to do a fight. And you couldn't just say no. You just had to do the goddamn fight, right? You can just completely ignore fights now if you want to. But you're also able to leave any fight you want to at any point, right? Maybe you accidentally joined a random encounter, or maybe you're farming monsters and this fight doesn't have the monster that you want to get a carcass from, or whatever the reason might be. You can just simply hit start, return to world map, and it'll put you back to the point before the fight. But you're also able to retry a fight. Let's say something horrible happens, like, I don't know, maybe you kill most of your team with one attack. You can then hit start and click retry, and you can either retry from the very beginning of the fight or before you even put down your units, and you can edit gear and stuff. Maybe you forgot to put a particular accessory on a character, whatever the reason might be. Also, throughout a fight, there's autosave. So let's say you get like halfway through a fight and then your team gets wiped out for whatever reason. You can hit start, go to load, and then use one of the autosaves. I don't know what dictates it. I'm not sure what dictates that when I do this particular thing, an autosave happens, but you can kind of pick up a fight like midway through instead of having to start it all the way over. It actually was useful when I was trophy hunting and trying to get particular rare skins from monsters. I actually had an autosave that happened in the middle of the fight, like right before I killed the monster. So I was able to just keep reloading that over and over and kill the monster over and over until I eventually got the rare skin. There is also autosaves on the world map in case you forgot to save before like a hard fight or something. It doesn't really matter because you can just like leave a hard fight. If you're just stuck on this fight, you can hit start, go to world map or whatever, right? Or retry from the beginning. Whatever you need to do. So like, but there is an option for that. There is autosaves happening on the world map as well. Speaking of the trophies, speaking of the platinum, it's honestly a pretty easy platinum to get. It's a little bit of grinding with one of the trophies, but for the most part, it's like, the story stuff, and then it's just like do 5 things with this class. Like for the Black Mage, for example, you have to damage an enemy with a black magic spell by targeting the tile, not the unit, right? Do that 5 times, boom, that's a trophy. And so on and so forth through all the different classes in the game. Knight class, you got to rend enemy equipment 5 times, which is where you break their equipment. That's pretty easy to do. With the thief class, you got to poach 5 carcasses from the monsters or whatever. Super easy to do. With the orator, you got to entice 5 monsters to join your team. That's kind of annoying to do, but it's not too hard. I get the point. That's like the bulk of the trophies for the game, right? The hardest trophy, at least grind-wise, is you have to teach every class and every skill from every single class on one particular character. I chose for that to be Ramza for me, which makes it even harder because he does have a missable move with Ultima, which you can get hit by, I think, like 2 or 3 times in the story. But with the post-game dungeon, or it's not really post-game because you can do it right before the end of the game. But with the Midnight's Deep, I think there are enemies that use Ultima in there, if I'm not mistaken. So like that's actually not a missable move. And then there's also the Zodiac Summon, which in the original game was missable because I think can only be hit by it with the boss at the end of Midnight's Deep. But because of this enhanced version of the game, you can just run that last part of the dungeon again over and over if you want to. So you can never really miss Zodiac. But the amount of time it takes to get enough JP to learn every skill from every single class is super annoying. Now, there are some workarounds with this. I think there is like auto battle AFK, like JP farming now because of the auto battle feature that's available. I never used that one time. I never used the auto battle at all. But there is that method, I believe. There's probably guides for that on YouTube. You also have the ability when you kill like a human character, they can turn into something after a few turns. They can turn into a chest where you can get like I think one of their equipments or just an item, or they can turn into a crystal, which the crystal can just simply re-heal your character, give them full HP, full MP, or they can also drop some of their skills, which I definitely did that with Ramza pretty much every time. When I'm going through like some of just the random encounters or the story fights, if the battle's lasting long enough to where a human character turns into a crystal, I definitely made his ass walk over those crystals, right? Because any sort of ability he can learn is just a help for the grind, right? Because that's that much less JP you have to farm for the character. There is a kind of simple JP farming method you can do that's existed since the original game, where you just pretty much put any character you want to grind into Squire class. You teach them JP boost as their support ability. You teach them the focus skill. You go into a fight, a random encounter, kill every enemy but one, and then just have everybody just hit focus over and over and over, and they'll get like 50 plus JP every single turn, right? And you can do this from the beginning of the game, and you can unlock every single class for every character if you wanted to pretty damn early in the game, and it's probably going to take like hours of grinding, but you can get like every single class at the very beginning. Because the only requirement for unlocking other classes is leveling up some of the classes you already have, right? So you can do this very early in the game. Just level up your Squire to unlock Archer and Knight, and then level up your Archer to unlock Thief, and Knight unlocks, I think, Monk, and then Monk unlocks like Geomancer. Some classes do require multiple classes to level up, but that's still, again, very easy to do with this farming method. The point is, if you want to get the platinum for this game, you want to start on that particular trophy as early as you can. You want to start unlocking all the classes, all the abilities you can for whatever character you want to get all the skills for. The only other trophy that was kind of annoying for me was having to get the 10 unique items from the Poacher's Den. And that generally comes from the rare skins of a monster. Sometimes it can be like the common skin too, depending on what the monster is. But I just kept like having bad luck with that, having to keep reloading to try to get the rare carcass, or trying to reloading a fight for one particular area to try to get a particular monster. And from what I read, it had to be 10 unique items, so you couldn't just farm like the same skin over and over to get 10 of that same item to get the trophy. That could be wrong, but I listened to that. Overall, though, when it comes to the game, there's technically not any missable trophies. You have to let any of the unique characters throughout the story join your team, and as long as you do that, there's not anything that's actually missable. When it comes to the game overall, like I don't really have any complaints. If there's like one thing to complain about, it's the side questing, because there's very little. There's like 4 or 5 side quests roughly, and it's all relegated to chapter 4, which is the last chapter of the game. That's a little bit strange to me. I don't know why you wouldn't sprinkle some side quests throughout the game, because it kind of comes out of nowhere if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know that there is side questing, because once you get to chapter 4, if you have like particular side characters with you, you walk to a particular town and then like a cutscene plays, and it's like, what the fuck is this? This is not anything. You don't get cutscenes at all throughout the game except for the story segments, right? So it kind of catches you by surprise. So it's definitely something I would have preferred to have kind of throughout the game, maybe even just like starting in chapter 2 or something. You can start kind of getting side quests. It can just be a few per chapter, but it'd be nice to know that that's a thing you can do throughout the game as opposed to only doing it in chapter 4. So we haven't mentioned up to this point, we haven't talked about FF7 yet. You can get Cloud in this game. This was in the original version, so it's also here, of course. Because of the voice acting, he is voiced by Cody Christian, which is wonderful. He is a little better this time around than he was in the original game. He was kind of an average character in the original game, but what they did now is they sped up all of his moves, because they were pretty slow charge times where it could take up several turns to do one of his moves. I don't know how much they sped it up totally. I know his very last attack was very slow. It had a charge time of 5 in the original game, which is horribly slow. They doubled it to 10, which is still horribly slow, but it's literally double what it used to be. They also gave him a new weapon, where you used to be able to find the materia blade for him, which is what allows you to have his abilities. They have the Materia Blade Plus now, which is one of the better weapons in the game. He joins the team at level 45 instead of level 1 this time, and he does have the default Materia Blade already equipped on him, which allows him access to his abilities like Braver and Cross Slash and stuff like that. So he's just way better this time around. I'm not sure where this newer version of Cloud ranks at in terms of like the unique character list of the game. That's something else somebody could talk about, I'm sure. But he's definitely way better than he was before. Overall, though, this game was absolutely wonderful. It was nice to play it and I guess probably beat it for the first time, as it would seem, right? And its enhanced version just adds so much. The quality of life changes. Also, the voice acting. It's literally some of the best voice acting in the entire franchise, dude. That's how good it is. Like, it's as good or better than other games in general, not just the Final Fantasy franchise, right? It's just damn good voice acting. Before playing this version of the game, like, I don't know where Tactics would have ranked, whether it's the original version or War of the Lions, like where I would have put that on my like Final Fantasy tier list. My top 3 is always the same: 7, 10, 9, right? 12 is generally my 4th one, which is a nice little connection to this game, right? Because I do love the world of Ivalice. And maybe this is top 5 now. Speaking of 12, though, there was a lot of things I kind of recognized from 12. A lot of the bosses you fight throughout the game are the espers you can get in Final Fantasy 12. They look quite different, but just the names were recognizable, which was kind of cool. It makes a lot of sense, of course. They share a world. They're both in Ivalice or whatever. But, you know, having not that much memory of the original Tactics, but knowing a lot about Final Fantasy 12, it was just kind of cool to see. But that, of course, is pretty much the video, my dudes. Pass off to you guys. Have you played Final Fantasy Tactics Original, War of the Lions? Have you played this new version? What are your thoughts on the new version? The enhancements, the voice acting, all the quality of life changes. That'll be the video, my dudes. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, _DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We